So what's up, guys? Today I'm here to show you something that I think I created. I think I created because maybe someone had this idea already, but I couldn't find anything like that on the internet. So yeah, maybe I'm the first one to ever think about it. But okay, um, I am a React developer for the past 2 years. I have been a React developer for the past 2 years, and this is what I typically see as a component, right? Um, it's not very complicated. I just set up a simple example for me to show my point, right? But yeah, you can have an idea of how things are gonna work. I'm using React Native here. I have an Android emulator here, but nothing that I say here you're gonna see. Nothing that I say here is exclusive for React Native. It's actually a React design pattern, and React Native is just React but for mobile, and yeah, you know. So yeah, this is I have a default component here, just as I would see on a React code base. This is what I typically would see, and I have my pattern, and this has the exact same behavior. So how does it work? Okay, we have a value here starting with 0, and we can increment the value and we can decrement the value, and there's a conditional rendering here showing if it's odd or even, and whenever the value reaches 0, there's an alert for the user. Hey, the value is 0, is 10, we are rolling back to 0, and the value is 0. So the default has this behavior, and my version has the exact same behavior, right? And there's navigation through pages, right? We can go forward and go back. So yeah, let me just run down for this code, right? So we have some imports here. We import React, and we import in basic hooks from React for me to develop the logic for the component. And we have the template imports, right? We have some type imports because I'm declaring some type here. I'm using React navigation, the material top tab navigation, if I'm not mistaken. And this is a navigator that inject props into my component. So I have the navigation and I have the route. Those are two props that the router is injecting into my component, right? So yeah, I am expecting to receive those props here. Navigation route. Okay. So here is basically the simplest behavior that you can imagine. We have a user state starting with 0 and have a value set value. I am monitoring the value with the use effect, right? And if the value is 10 or greater, I alert the user and roll back to 0. And at the bottom of the file, we have our template. That's it. We have the default version here labeled here, right? And the touchable opacity, that's a button in React Native, and on press we gotta increment the value. I set the value to value plus 1, and we have the decrement, and the decrement function set the value to value minus 1. Pretty simple. We have another button here, the touchable opacity, that's the button, and we access the props navigation because I'm expecting here that my router will inject those props here, props navigation, and I can call the function navigate and pass in the route name. That's my pattern, right? That's the button that has read and go forwards. I have also some conditional rendering here. So if the value divided by 2 has a remainder of 0, then the number is even. If it doesn't, then the number is odd. That's how I typically see conditional rendering in React and React Native. And I'm rendering the text here, the value here at the bottom of the file, just because, right? So yeah, that's what I would see in a typical React or React Native code base here. But honestly, I don't like it. I don't like it because especially when the components start to get more complicated, with more behavior and doing more things, it starts to be a little mess inside here, right? Because the only thing that you can be sure is that at the bottom of the file you're gonna have some return, and you gotta have some template. But the logic here inside, it can be just thrown out in any order that you like, and you can have the function declaration here inside the template here, right? That's absolutely common. I saw that many times, and it might be saying, oh, okay, you're just const increment and declare a function here. Yeah, you can do it, but still not quite fix the problem, because what I want to do is completely detach the template from the logic. I want to have the logic on the one place and the template on another, and I want it for the logic to be injected in the template. So yeah, I have here my pattern is the exact same behavior, right? We can increment is even, odd, here's the value, and it's gonna reach 10, rolling back to 0. Increment, decrement, that's the exact same thing. We can go back, go forward, go back. Okay, so how does my pattern work? Here's the index, here's my component, and that's it. So we have a render, that's the template, and we are destructuring logic that receives the initial props. Those initial props are the same thing. The thing that I'm typing, right? What the router injects into my component. I have the navigation and I have the route, right? So yeah, let's see the render. And here's the render. Has some imports, but all the imports here are reduced because I'm just importing some things. I'm importing typing from the logic, but I'm importing only render components, right? So sorry for the Discord. Yeah, on press props dot increment. The decrement on press props dot decrement. See, I'm not declaring a new function here. I'm not doing this. It would work, but I'm actually creating a new function here inside the template, and I don't want that. I just want to pass a function here. So yeah, okay. And I have props go back. I create a new component here for the conditional render, because yeah, we need that. I don't want like have this thing, because this is logic. I'm using logic here to determine if this has to be rendered or not inside the template, and I don't want this to be decided inside the template. I want this to be decided in the logic. So yeah, and this is just a component that will render its children if the prop that it receives is true. That's just it. And how does it work? Where is coming those props? So you might be saying, okay, you call this function logic, passing the initial props, and you destructure that. What is this logic function? This is just a custom hook. And see, this is the power of the custom hooks. I think not everyone realizes how powerful they are. They can be as powerful as you want. So yeah, I typed here the return of this custom hook. I typed here the initial props, that's the thing, navigation and route, and it's the same behavior. Use state starting with 0, we have a value sent value, and we have an increment and decrement functions. We have a go back that is receiving now the initial props, right? That's our go back function is navigating to the default. The same use effect monitoring the value for it to roll back to 0 if it reaches 10 or above. And I'm declaring an isEven const here. And my custom hook will return an object with all of that. See? And when it comes here, I just destructure this. So now those props are this object. It's just the return of this. Those are the props. I have all the props here, and I can just reference it on my template. That's beautiful because the whole logic is detached from the template, which means I can use the same logic in multiple templates, and that's something very cool. It's also very maintainable because I don't need to be searching like, oh, where do I determine if the number, if this label here is gonna render as even or odd? Maybe some logic. Here is a very simple logic, but maybe some very convoluted logic, like you're doing all sorts of validation stuff. And if this validation is all over the place, it's become very difficult for you to maintain and to find bugs, and very easy for you to actually implement bugs on this validation. If you keep on all in the same place, it's easier, right? Also, something better came out of this because this is a custom hook and you can make unity tests on custom hooks. You can test the behavior of your component without actually having to render it on the screen, because otherwise you would have to render on the screen and start clicking buttons and all sort of stuff, simulating clicks for you to make an automated test. And here we have just a simple custom hook that you can render inside some, there are hook renders there for you to do unity tests, and it's very easy for you to do that. You can test the behavior of your component without having to render it on the screen, and that's cool. Some other things, maybe you might be solved that, right? You have like a component and you have to pass a bunch of props. Prop 1, value 1, and then okay, and you have a bunch of values, right? You saw that. It happened to you, right? The thing is, this will have to make the template cleaner. What you can do is just return component props, and then you can have prop 1, value 1, prop 2, value 2, and that goes on. And then what you do, you just come here, props, component props, and you have a cleaner template. So yeah, it has a bunch of possibilities, and I'm pretty sure you guys can do something way more creative and way more elegant than I'm thinking here. So yeah, that's the hook injection. The component will inject a custom hook into a render, into a template. I never saw anything like that on the internet. I took no inspiration of anything. I mean, I just came up with this from on my own. But I feel like this is something that probably people have already been thinking of. So if you saw something similar to that, or if you like, I don't know, had this idea or saw this in other places, just let me know. And that's it. Thank you for your attention and feel free to comment. Bye.